What is up, YouTube? We have another video today. Well, let's talk about another controversial NES game. So we talked about sequels before, and Cherokee Fit, a subscriber on here, brought up a good suggestion for this kind of little series we're doing, and that is Friday the 13th on the NES. Now, why is this so controversial? So first off, let's just take a glance at this image, and you should be able to see right off the bat two key things here. Obviously, it's based on Friday the 13th, and if you don't know, that's a horror film about Jason. And essentially, in these Friday the 13th movies, Jason is killing and doing violence and stuff like that. As you can see here, he is attacking a camp counselor kid, and appears to be using what looks like a machete or something like that. Now, this is huge, controversial. Now, obviously, besides his coloring, which is not even close to what the original looks like in the movies and stuff like that, he is obviously attacking what we would consider a kid. Now, this was an LGN video game, which obviously is not have a very good record for NES games. A lot of the LGN games, in fact, later on, stink as well. So this was weird. Now, obviously, what we said, one of the first things we're going to talk about is just based on a violent R-rated horror movie, which is a franchise which was notorious for graphic violence and gore and nudity, I guess. So parents were shocked that such a franchise was adapted into a game for a system heavily marketed to children. That was the one thing I had written down to talk about. Nintendo is famous for being family-oriented, basing everything and kind of aiming more towards kids, because obviously it's a huge demographic is kids. So this was very huge, controversial for the time, because there's not very many NES games out there that have basically a serial killer, a supernatural serial killer, killing kids essentially. Now, if you've seen the movies and stuff like that, like we said, this is a lot of it is horrific gore and violence and stuff like that. Parents are obviously not very impressed with this. I don't know how well the sales did. I should have looked it up. But yeah, my other thing was the scary images for kids. Jason Voorhees appears suddenly in the game, often jumping out of dark cabins, which scared many young players. He just randomly appears. You'll be going down sideways through an area, and all of a sudden you'll just hear the music, and then you'll start popping in. His design, the purple jumpsuit and the teal mask, looked odd, but the counters were actually startling. Some parents felt it was too frightening for kids compared to the safe side, which was like Mario, Zelda, stuff like that. Those are kind of the safe games to go with. And this one was a little off. A huge one. Now, this is the third one that I had written down was huge. The implied violence against kids. Now, it's one thing to have, Jason killing other people, but in this one, it's the Friday the 13th movies are famous for basically him going after camp counselors. Usually kids that are doing not so good things, they usually get him after him. My fourth one, we kind of already talked about this, was the Nintendo's family-friendly image. So like I said, the safe thing that most Nintendo did was Mario, Zelda, Kirby, stuff like that, where it was like very, very family and kid stuff. And I think there's only a few select games that are on the NES that involve darker imaging. I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but I know there's not that many. So the fact that Nintendo licensed this and released it almost makes you wonder if they actually didn't check it out. I know that a lot back in the day, there's a lot of third-party games that got released, and the shovelware for the NES is nuts. And obviously the very last one was the bad reputation for LGN games. I mean, you guys just literally have to go watch Angry Video Game Nerd, and you'll see that I think there's only like one or two games that he thought were actually approved for being a decent game. Now, I know this game, if you play it, at first it's very confusing. I think not only to what you have to do, but on top of that, the mapping on it. I think a lot of times you think you're going the right way, and then you look at your map, and all of a sudden you're on the other side, and you're like, what is going on? It's one of those games where it's hard to read the map. But once you figure that out, I've seen people beat this game. I once thought this game was unbeatable. It's one of those games where it's just like, what is going on? And then when you finally face Jason, a lot of times in a cabin or something like that, he comes at you, and it's like, it's impossible to fight him, it seemed like. But after watching people who've like studied the game and actually figured this stuff out, it's kind of like games like Jaws and stuff like that, where there's a game right there that was kind of controversial too. We might bring that up later on. Another R-rated movie thing. I might be R-rated, I'm not for sure, but yeah, it was like Jaws. People didn't know what they were doing, so the game sucked until, you know, obviously word got around and YouTube and stuff, and later on in life, just everybody kind of was like, oh, so this is how you beat the game. But yeah, that's the other thing. The bad design controversy added to the outrage since parents saw it as a cash grab, exploiting a violent movie brand. So obviously, yeah, people that were like playing the NES at the time, and also people who like the horror films or Friday the 13th in general, were like, oh cool, they made a Friday the 13th movie, I'm gonna get it. And then just be a cash grab, which we see all the time nowadays. The controversy came from mixing an R-rated slasher film with a family-friendly console. Nintendo hasn't been doing this much at all nowadays. Or I shouldn't say nowadays, I said at this time. They are actually branching out more, and you're starting to see a little bit of darker stuff that they are putting out. But for the longest time, they were revered as being the console for your kids. So you could always use to get this console, a Nintendo console for your kids, and you wouldn't run into any controversies. Usually pretty family-friendly games, which is still kind of true to this day. We personally only use our Switch and stuff to play family games like, you know, Mario Party, Mario Kart, and other games like that. Mostly Mario games in general. But yeah, so this was what the topic for the day was. I want to know what you guys think about this. I mean, there was obviously more violent video games out there, you know, like Ghosts and Goblins and stuff like that. But that wasn't really like real, you know what I mean? It wasn't more, oh my gosh, this is, you know, like a serial killer killing kids, essentially. This wasn't as dark as that. I mean, it was more cartoonish, more imagery, where it was just kind of like, all right, you know what, you're killing zombies and stuff on the side, like a side scroller like Castlevania, and yeah, like I said, Ghosts and Goblins. So I want to know in the comments below what you guys think about this. Did you ever have this game back in the day? I do think, now that I think about it off the top of my head, there was the let's see here, why can't I think of the name now? Oh gosh, the Nightmare on Elm Street. There was a game about that one, which I hear is actually a pretty decent game. I never played it, so I think that was one of the few games you can actually play 4 people on. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay retro, my friends. And yeah, let me know in the comments below, do you think this was a very controversial game? And do you see Nintendo making more? And also, if you can think of any of the violent games that should be brought up in controversial games, let me know in the comments below. God bless, guys.